the Mirthmobile.
I think we'll go with a little
Mixtape Monday.
Exit to each other. Party on, dudes!
Good night, party on!
Party on, Wayne!
Party on, John.
Aha, there. It helps when I add myself to the stage. What's up, everybody? Welcome to this edition of Mixtape Mondays. I, of course, am your host, John, the creative blue-collar guy. And we got a little bit of an interesting one tonight. Had a pretty busy weekend, so I make no promises. Going to kind of be reading off some random facts from this album from 1996. I unfortunately could not find my physical copy of it. This is not one that I have on vinyl. A nearby local record store, one of which I'm wearing their shirt right now, oddly enough, that was not planned, got a copy of this album on vinyl a couple years ago, and I want to say it very well may have been an original pressing from back in 1996 because I saw it on his Instagram, messaged him about it. He said he had a lot of people asking about it, and when I asked for the cost, it was close to $200. I like music and I like records, but at the end of the day, it's still something that's going to sit on the shelf that I'm going to listen to once in a while. I'm not going to frame it. I'm not going to preserve it. It's going to get worn out. But even the CD, I was trying to find the CD, trying to maybe set up my second camera, kind of go through, because the if you are here, and I'm assuming if you're here, you're familiar with this band. They are notorious for making their album artwork interesting, interactive, and this is well before the days of digital. They actually only just put their whole catalog on a digital format, meaning iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music, etc. 4 years ago, back in 2019. So even back in the mid 90s, they thought, if someone's going to spend money to get this CD, to have this physical piece of art, they wanted to make it worth it. So I was trying to find my copy. I was trying to have that here ready to flip through. I got a couple of kind of low quality photos. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I don't know. We shall see how this turns out. But anyways, anyone here on a Monday, if you got a drink, cheers to you. Of course, I have my waiting for Nerdrotic koozie there. I don't think I could ever actually be as late as Nerdrotic, but I'll always wait just a little bit because Lady Marine's here giving me shit for that. Really quick, though, before we do move on, we do have Jacob Ironside in the chat. What is up, brother? As well as our resident troll, Lady Marine. Cheers to you as well. So, the album Ænima, I'm not even really sure how to pronounce it. Ænima, Ænima. It's definitely not enema. It's obviously a mix of the two words, but we all know, what that is. Came out on September 17th, 1996. Debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 100. It was certified triple platinum in 2003. And even before we kind of get into the details of this album and just kind of where the band was in their career at this point in time in 1996, I thought it was kind of worth noting that the 90s were also kind of a weird time for music and buying physical copies of music. So I actually looked this up to see when, first and foremost, like when was the first time a black and white parental advisory label went on an album. A little bit of research I did on it came up that something was headed up by Tipper Gore. Surprise. Funny that each political party wants to accuse the other political party of you're all for censorship, you're trying to take away people's rights or whatever. But here, a wife of a well-known Democrat was heading up this committee or whatever to ban and or censor music or stick this label on there. And the parental advisory sticker Sometimes it was just a sticker you could peel off. Sometimes it was physically printed on the artwork. It was an interesting thing, and I mean, it still exists, but I just don't feel like you see it as frequently as we used to. Most notably in the 90s, mid 2000s, and it always kind of throw off the artwork of the album. You know, like you buy this thing, especially if it was printed on there permanently. Like you buy this thing and it's just permanently stuck there in the corner of this album. There we go. Yeah, that thing. So that first popped up in, oh God, where'd my other thing? Nobody needs to see my face. That first popped up in 1990 on the release of an album called Banned in the USA by rap group Two Live Crew. I kind of figured it would have been something a little more notable, but I thought that was kind of interesting to mention. What's up, Devin? The other troll from the north. Here to stir the pot a little bit. I hope, at least. So yeah, it was an interesting time. It's like albums were getting the parental advisory stickers on them. If any of you can remember buying music from Walmart or Target, oftentimes without you even realizing it, you'd get the CD home and realize that the album was censored. Like they had just sort of bleeped out or just kind of cut out the audio anytime they deemed there was a bad word. And kind of another interesting one was not the album we're talking about, but since we're talking about Tool and we're talking about censorship and music in the 90s, there was also sometimes alternate album covers if said establishments such as Walmart or Target or Kmart decided that the album artwork was inappropriate. So kind of a funny one was the album just before this one that you're looking at the cover art for right now for Ænima. The sophomore, well, I guess it was their first full-length album because their first one was technically an EP, whatever. But the album Undertow, this is the album cover. It's just a kind of a ribcage looking thing. I think it was a sculpture made by guitarist Adam Jones in the band. And somehow certain retailers dubbed that inappropriate. So there was a time where even this was the alternate cover to their album Undertow. So just a strange time for music, strange time for censorship. And then we kind of go back and forth. The pendulum swings back and forth where we get hard censorship. Then they decide it's creative liberty. We should let people do whatever they want. And then we go back to censorship. And it's an interesting world. Steven Ransom, my man. I also heard that you are started a job recently, I believe. I think I saw something on Twitter about that. So congratulations to you on finally being back in the workforce again. I know that must have been pretty stressful. Okay, so that's that. So just kind of a little bit of an interesting history of music in the 90s, censorship, different albums. But also Tool, when they first came out, they started with the EP Opiate, Undertow, and then this album Ænima came out in 1996. The internet was still very much in its infancy. Like, okay, yeah, we had AOL, we had the chats and whatever. Oh, what was it called? Like AOL Instant Messenger, whatever it was called, I forget. The internet existed. The internet was out there, but it was nothing like what it is now, where people have no privacy. Everything about their life is in the spotlight. They're all in the public, everything. There were some wild rumors that circulated about this band for a long time, because in their album artwork and liner notes, there usually were either no photos of the band, or the photos that were in there were heavily edited and altered, and it wasn't just like a portrait of the band. They never appear in their music videos. Their music videos are usually some very strange stop motion that's also usually created by and directed by their guitarist, Adam Jones, who oddly enough had a fairly successful career doing visual effects in Hollywood before the band really took off. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he was working on Jurassic Park at the time that the band started to really, really take off. And he had to actually quit mid-production. Starbucks barista start later this week. Right on, man. Well, congratulations on that. You know when you got bills to pay and no money coming in, that can be a very stressful situation. Oh yeah, well, don't make promises you can't cash, or don't write checks that you know where I'm going with that. And no, oddly enough, I'm not even drunk yet. This is my first beer. So they did not appear in their music videos. Little to nothing was known about any of the band members because, again, back then you couldn't look them up on Wikipedia and you couldn't find out that, oh, okay, these guys live in Los Angeles and they went to this college and they went to, well, I mean, there were rumors all the way up as far as, there we go. That's the Devin we all know. Well, happy Monday to you, sir. Thanks for popping in. Hope you enjoy the rest of your evening or night or whatever time it is, what time zone you're in. So there were at one point even rumors circulating that the Tool might have been from Holland, that just all sorts of weird stuff. And they were able to maintain that sense of mystery because they could put out whatever information about themselves they wanted to, and then withhold anything that they did not want to put out there. Again, now, the internet is a big thing and everybody knows everything about everything. And, about Tool, when I heard that Susan Vega hooked up with the lead sound engineer and he should be happy finally. Huh. So the image I have on the screen right now is the front cover. Part of why I was trying to actually find my physical copy of the CD is because the jewel case for it had I have no idea what it's called, but the plastic has that sort of texture or pattern over it where with this image we're looking at right now, when it's in the cover, if you moved it back and forth, it would animate, like the eyes would move, the smoke would move, everything. And there are other images throughout the case that if you swapped it out, so like if you pulled the liner notes out and folded it differently, other things would also animate. I feel like I have to sneeze, but it keeps going away. I'll try to mute the microphone if it actually happens. Let's see. One such image, though, that is particularly interesting and very near and dear to my heart. Where did it go? Oh, damn it. Maybe I didn't download that one. Oh, there we go. So this image... Oh, there it is, animated. Nice. So this image is, I believe, when you open up the case and pop a CD out of there, it's another one where you move the case back and forth and it animates and it shows California breaking off and sinking into the ocean. Obviously, I hope that doesn't happen while I still live here, but no, wouldn't be a terrible thing. You are correct. It is not. But there are some other very strange and, depending on the type of person you are, possibly disturbing imagery in their albums as well. But for now, we're looking at California disappearing into the ocean. I think this was also right around the time that singer Maynard James Keenan left LA to move to Arizona. So in the title track from this album, where it's talking about California breaking off and sinking into the ocean, and I'll see you down in Arizona Bay, just basically saying, okay, if California goes away, then Arizona will now be beachfront property. But this is when he moved to Arizona, eventually bought up land and property, and launched what would later become his winery, which is now thriving and doing well. But yeah, that was another one of the animated images in there. The big green eye. Let's zoom out on that one. This is the back cover of the album, the eye with the two pupils. I've actually toyed around a very long time about getting this very image tattooed into the blank space on my elbows. Oh, well, that would make sense. Maybe it should go back to being like that. I don't know if I could handle Alabama. It's rough. I have had a hard time with the heat and the humidity here this summer, and it's not normally humid here. What else do we have that's interesting as far as the images? You're not wrong. So then we have this image here. This is just titled Angels. It's got, I mean, you can see over here, like, okay, these are sort of like the classic, like bald baby winged angels, but then this very xenomorph looking thing that right there, it's got that eye with the two pupils in it. This album, I do believe, was done before they started commissioning Alex Gray to do all their artwork for him. Everything after this, Lateralis, 10,000 Days, Fear Inoculum, they've had the very well-known, notable artist Alex Gray do their album artwork, liner notes, T-shirts, all sorts of other stuff. This one obviously is not. It's not the traditional. It's not the standard Alex Gray artwork. But yeah, I just kind of appreciated that this has a very H.R. Geiger. Forget how to. I always pronounce his name wrong as well. But I would say H.R. Geiger, xenomorph, kind of alien-looking artwork there. And then also during this time, they had befriended comedian Bill Hicks, which I'm actually almost a little bit ashamed to say that I'm not terribly familiar with his work. I've known forever that they were friends with him. They sampled a snippet of one of his comedy bits at the beginning of the last track on this album, Third Eye. And all these years have gone by. I should have looked up his comedy. I haven't, but they believed he was someone that was kind of going in the same direction they were, whatever that means. I think he was the one that said something about taking psychedelics, whether it was either mushrooms or LSD or something, would, quote, like squeegee your third eye, which, again, the last track on this album is called Third Eye, and it's basically talking about that, of opening up your third eye, being more spiritually aware, seeing the spiritual realm. And many people believed that psychedelics such as mushrooms, LSD, etc., could do such a thing. So this one is, you have very much looks like a depiction of singer Maynard James Keenan here, and then that's obviously a depiction of Bill Hicks, who I believe died of cancer. So it was kind of one of those things where he knew it was coming. They were friends with him. They knew it was coming, and they said he just sort of died too soon. I believe one of the other images I managed to snag. Here we go. Was this one, where again there it's got the eyes back there in the artwork, and then Bill Hicks, and down here it says another dead hero. So I guess he had passed before the album had been released. But they famously used a clip of him at the beginning of the final track, Third Eye, where he's saying, like I think drugs have done good things in the world. If you don't think drugs have done good things, it's like, do me a favor. I want you to go home tonight, take all your albums, all your CDs, all your tapes, everything, and burn them. Because the musicians who made all that great music that's enhanced your lives throughout the years were real high on drugs. And it's, he stretches it out a little more, makes it a little more dramatic, but it's kind of a funny bit that at the same time, I mean, you can say, oh, I don't like this stuff, this should be illegal, it's bad for people, it messes up their brains, whatever. But I mean, let's be real. If we're talking about Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, some of the classics, some of the greats, I mean, yeah, he's not wrong about the fact that musicians that made all that music that people grew up on, especially now this album having come out in the mid 90s, the music that people grew up listening to, it's probably very drug fueled. I am not. You take that back. There's a reason I make my camera really small over here in the corner and try to keep some other kind of artwork up here. All right, so what other fun facts do we have here? So it's talking about censorship, talking about the 90s. So when this album came out, it debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 100, certified triple platinum in 2003, was ranked the 6th most influential album of all time by Kerrang. Rolling Stones listed the album at number 18 on the list of the 100 greatest metal albums of all time. Most notably, also, this was the first album with their new at the time bassist Justin Chancellor, who was replacing Paul Diamore, who had left under I don't know. It's another one of those things, kind of like the band Incubus when their founding bassist left, and really I think the last talented member of the band, because Incubus music has sucked ever since he left. Both parties were kind of quiet about it. I've heard and read some rumors about Paul wanted to play guitar, so he wanted to basically have himself and Adam Jones play guitar and then bring in another bass player. Maybe they didn't like that. At the end, they used the classic rock star thing of, oh, he left because of creative differences, but it never really seemed like there was bad blood between the two parties because he never really came out and said much else. They didn't say much else about him. But also, again, the internet and tabloids and all those things were not what it is today. So if Twitter had existed back in 1996, maybe we would have gotten some more insight into why Paul left. But enter Justin Chancellor, and the band has not had a lineup change since, which I find pretty impressive that they're going on almost 30 years with the same lineup. But they were still in the process of writing this album when founding bassist Paul Diamore left. So he is credited as a writer, co-writer between, all four of them, Keenan, Jones, Carey, and Paul Diamore on Stinkfist, Eulogy, H, Push It, and the title track Ænima. I guess some demos exist out there somewhere in the world with him playing on them, but the actual official recordings, Justin Chancellor recorded the album, but these 5 songs had already been kind of in motion, so Paul was still fair point. But you know how it is now, and when stuff goes down and like one party says their piece and then the other one comes back and says that's not true, we kicked him out of the band and that's a lie, and that's back and forth. But back in 1996, a band member could just leave the band, and unless Rolling Stone or somebody came and interviewed them about it, their side would never really get told. So it's you didn't have that same liberty to be able to just blah. 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s, even a little bit of the 50s. But then it's also the reason why some of the greatest artists are dead. So and then of course the title of the album is a combination of the words, I'm guessing this is pronounced Ænima, Latin for soul and associated with the ideas of life force, and a term often used by psychologist Carl Jung. And Ænima, well, So let's go up into kind of the background. So lyrics and themes, we can get into this a little bit. Hey, what's going on, Roman? So Pippin needed another walk after barfing on your carpet? Did you at least get a nap in this afternoon since you were up at 1:40 in the morning? Hey, cheers to you all the same. Appreciate you being here after all the puppy drama today. At least I talk about stuff that people have heard about. You and your Star Trek and authors that no one's ever read their books. And so it consists of, let's see here. Several of the songs on the album are short segues or interludes that connect to longer songs, pushing the total duration of the CD towards the maximum of around 80 minutes. This is something else that they're also famous for. And when the preferred medium for music was the CD can only hold 80 minutes. They would really push that limit. This one clocks in at 77 minutes and 18 seconds. Some of the other ones hit right up to the 80-minute mark. So they add in all these different little segues and things with watch it with the ST. What? I don't know what you're talking about. Ah, yes. Also good old classic 90s. I mean, well, Nine Inch Nails and Tool. I'm not entirely sure about Portishead, but Nine Inch Nails and Tool are still out there making music. But yeah, classic 90s stuff there. So the segues and just kind of interludes push it up to almost the 80-minute mark. The segues are Useful Idiot, Message to Harry Manback, Intermission, Die Eier von Satan, Cesaro Some Ability, and Negative Ions. So let's get into some of the interesting bits about that. Gotta make that text on my screen bigger. My eyes are going bad. Wrong screen. Hold on, we're getting there. There we go. A little easier to read. The track Useful Idiot features the sound of a needle skipping at the end of a gramophone record, growing louder as the track progresses. The track was set at the end of side 1 of the vinyl release as a joke to fool those who owned this version. The song on vinyl not only ends in a locked groove, so it never actually pushes the needle over to the label where it actually makes the sound. So it just stays in that groove and just keeps playing the sound of a skipping needle. Requires manual lifting of the needle to end the playback, but it also continues on the run-in groove at the beginning of side 2. So this is already, there's going to be lots of references to this, especially in the next segue track, Message to Harry Manback. Tool is one of those bands where they come off as very deep, dark, serious, and mysterious, which in many ways they are. But the members of this band are also a bunch of trolls. They love they're a bunch of pranksters, like just that one right there. They're okay, we're going to make it sound like the record is skipping, but it's going to be a locked groove where the needle will not advance past this. So let's say if you do have a turntable that has the automatic return, where like if it runs all the way to the end and it returns the arm, it won't do that. It says you have to come over and manually lift it. Maybe not that big of a prank, but it's just like the little things where they're like, hey, let's do this. This is funny. The other thing I find hilarious about this is that many Tool fans do not get their sense of humor. Even with this band having been around for over 30 years, there's still so many Tool fans that are just so serious and they're so just like they don't know how to just laugh. Years ago, I read a book. Roman, I read a book at least once in my life. Singer Maynard James Keenan put out, for better or worse, we'll call it an autobiography. And he was telling just the story of his life from childhood all the way up to, when he was writing the book, all the way from the formation of Tool, A Perfect Circle, him founding the winery in Payson, Arizona. No, Jerome, Arizona. And there was a story in the book about how Maynard has always wanted to combine comedy with music. If you're not familiar with his third and other side project band, Pussifer, that one was very much the culmination of stuff he had started doing back in the 80s. Like he has this one character where he's wearing this white leisure suit and like a blonde mullet wig with a mustache and the whole thing. And I think the character is called like Country Dick or something like that. Or all these different characters that he's made over the years and finally incorporated it into music. But he specifically told the story where Tool took Tenacious D on tour with them once. And this was at a time where Jack Black was acting, but he was not the very well-known name that he is now. So people didn't really know who Jack Black was. They really didn't know who Tenacious D was. And the fans started pelting them with pennies and just throwing whatever they had on stage, because these fans came to see a Tool show and they didn't appreciate the humor that Tenacious D was putting out. So it was just like, you guys seriously listen to this band for 30 plus years and don't realize how much humor and like dick jokes are interjected into their music. It cracks me up. So this next one, the next segue kind of interlude track, is called Message to Harry Manback. I mean, right away, if you can't just look at the title and realize that even the title is a joke, I mean, there's just no helping you at this point. Message to Harry Manback features calming piano music and the background noises of seagulls, while a profanity-laden message from an answering machine plays. The person who left the message was a visiting Italian friend of band member from the band Green Jelly, Gary Helsinger. Helsinger and Keenan, Maynard James Keenan, Tool singer, were roommates at the time of the incident, and Helsinger had earlier ejected the guest from the apartment for eating most of their food and running up an extensive phone bill. Ah, yes. Also, another thing that kids will never understand, back in the days where you actually had to be concerned about making long distance phone calls, or if this individual was Italian, God forbid, he's probably making international phone calls, and you actually had to pay for that shit back then. Yes, they indeed cannot take a joke. Roman, I read a book and I have proof. I don't know what that proof is, but I'll figure it out. I'll take a picture of me reading a book, and it won't be upside down this time. No sense of humor. You can pelt me with pennies if I play James Taylor songs. I'll take that. But it has to be $20 worth of pennies. Hope your throwing arm is good. Ah, yes, inflation. Yes, and Roman just pointed out another one. Green Jelly, yes, they were another victim of a copyright dispute. They were originally called Green Jello. The company Jello came back and said, you can't call your band Green Jello. And they said, okay, so now they're Green Jelly with the two little dot accent marks above the Y to, I don't know, make it look more interesting or something. All right, no promises, but we'll figure something out. Ran up the extensive phone bill. The name Harry Manback is a reference to a comedy routine by none other than Bill Hicks, their friend that I already mentioned earlier. A follow-up message from the same guest became Message to Harry Manback 2, found on the Salival, which features strings instead of piano. So that, whatever it is, salival, however it's pronounced, was a very limited edition box set that they put out, both with CD and VHS or CD and DVD, that featured a couple of live tracks, a couple of unreleased tracks, one of which was actually, interestingly enough, Tool has never been known for playing cover songs, but this limited box set, which I do have one of, I could probably find that, but that's off topic at this point. They covered the Led Zeppelin song No Quarter, and then it has some other previously unreleased tracks, has a couple of live tracks, but they're very different renditions of their songs Push It and Third Eye. And so that was definitely a score that I found at a music trader back when music traders existed. When I bought it, I had no idea that it was going to wind up being this limited thing, that when they finally put their whole catalog up on streaming services, the audio from that box set is not there. You cannot find this thing anywhere unless you're buying it secondhand from someone. Yes, hit song Three Little Pigs, actually also featuring Maynard James Keenan of Tool, because as this article is saying, he and Green Jelly singer were roommates at some point in time. Yeah, but you know, it's just another one of those things where they're like, "Oh, you're using a copyrighted word," and the whole thing was nonsense. Right? No, recipes cannot be copyrighted. But I think just because of the fact that they were using the word Jello, like the word Jello was their like either trademarked or copyrighted word. We got an even dumber story, totally off topic, but we're killing time. My favorite local brewery here has a very popular beer that they make year round called Stoner Moment IPA. This is much a bigger story in San Diego than anywhere else, so most people are probably not aware of this. But the brewery giant here in San Diego, California, Stone Brewing Company, got into a lawsuit with Keystone, owned by Miller Coors, because Keystone was selling cans that said Stone really big across across the side of the can, and then the key was like really really small tiny letters. They went after them saying that it was intentionally misleading beer drinkers to believe that that was a new beer from Stone Brewing Company, which they owned the rights to the name Stone Brewing Company. Um, they fought it out. I think Stone Brewing ended up winning, but during their time of them trying to sue a big beer giant, being a San Diego company, and granted, they're not necessarily a small company anymore, but they're smaller than Miller Coors. The judge said, well, to keep your lawsuit legitimate, you have to go after every single individual little small brewery that has used any of your trademarked words, which meant Stone Brewing Company and their staple IPA, which absolutely tastes like dog piss, Arrogant Bastard IPA. I read the exhaustive list of the big and small companies they were going after and suing and everything, and some of them were so ridiculously stupid. There was a brewery somewhere in America that made a beer called Juicy Bastard, and they went after them and said you can't use that. And it's like, well, hold on, like you don't own the word bastard, you own Arrogant Bastard IPA. But where it hit close to home was my friend who owns the brewery here in town was trying to trademark his beer Stoner Moment IPA because that has sort of become his staple popular beer. When it went through the trademark office, it flagged the people at Stone Brewing, and then they came back and said, "Hey, you can't call your beer Stoner Moment." And I'm thinking, I'm pretty sure nobody is going to accidentally roll into this small brewery here in my hometown and look at all the different beer names: Puff Puff Pale Ale, Galaxy Rye IPA, oh, Stoner Moment IPA. I wonder, out of all those beers up there, is that Stoner Moment IPA made by Stone Brewing Company? I don't think anyone's going to think that, but they went after him. They wound up settling. The settlement was really stupid because this guy is still, I mean, they just celebrated their 8th anniversary, so cheers to them for making it 8 years. Many small breweries don't make it past 5, but he does not distribute his beer. He doesn't can, he doesn't bottle. He sells a keg here and there to other local restaurants and bars really really close nearby, but he's not like distributing, because you have to sign a distribution deal to do that. The settlement with Stone Brewing was you cannot distribute your Stoner Moment IPA in Northern California. And he was like, done. It was the easiest settlement in the history of settlements. Uh, Weird tangent, way off topic, but since you're just talking about censorship and green jelly and green jello and jello saying that they can't use the word, sometimes these lawsuits are stupid, but sometimes the courts will uphold them. I used to like some of Stone's beers, but once they went after my friend, it became personal. Yeah. Let's continue. Oh, here's a fun one, which this song I just saw them perform live. I've seen Tool live many times. This song that we're about to talk about here, I finally just saw them play live for the first time this past January. Hooker with a Penis. Unfortunately, that can actually really be a true statement now in California. But 1996 was a different time. These were back in the days when singer Maynard James Keenan would largely dress up like a woman with like stockings and whatever, and he would wear a bra with fake boobs, but then he would have no hair, shaved head, wacky face paint, and just Yeah, now he just kind of hangs out back in the shadows. It's not as much of a front man anymore, really. He dresses up a lot with the band poster for Tool. He's back in the shadows. Hooker with a Penis refers to a fan who accused the band of selling out after their first EP. The quote OGT is taken to stand for Original Gangster Tool. Keenan whispers in the left channel throughout the song, and at 1 minute and 41 seconds, consume, be fruitful, and multiply. This is kind of another thing that they do regularly, where they'll sort of interject weird things where you've got to either be listening with like really good headphones, isolate the channels, figure out what's going on. On a later album, and a track in I believe it was on the album 10,000 Days, it starts out with Adam Jones kind of doing some volume fades on his guitar. So he's playing stuff and the volume's fading in and out, and Danny Carey's doing some drum stuff on his electronic pads and whatnot, and you hear these like weird whispering voices, but the audio is being played in reverse. When I first read this, I thought there's no way they actually did this. This has to be a joke, which again, as I just said, they are jokesters. I put the audio in my computer and reversed it so I could hear what these voices were saying at the beginning of the song that were reversed. And no shit, the article that I read saying what it was true, where it's Maynard whispering things like, stay in school, your mother was right, like listen to your parents. And he's like, because you know how they always say like rock and roll music, oh, if you play the record backwards, the song tells you to worship Satan and stuff. So it's like they throw this wacky shit in there to where you're like, oh, there's no way that's true. And then you put it in some software and reverse it, and you're like, no shit, it's actually in there. So it's just bunch of pranksters, man. Maybe alluding to Genesis. So talking about the book of the Bible, Genesis, it says, go forth, be fruitful and multiply, which contains the phrase be fruitful and multiply 6 times. During a Lollapalooza 1997 performance, a version of Hooker with a Penis remixed by Billy Howerdel, who would later go on to be guitarist and lead songwriter of A Perfect Circle, remixed the song Hooker with a Penis in the form of lounge music, and they played it over the public address system between sets. That is hilarious, and I bet the Tool fans were pissed. Not that Genesis. Come on, Roman. Devil worship. They're sweet boys. Play the record backwards, and it gives you wholesome messages about listening to your parents and staying in school. So let's see what else we got here that's interesting. This is another fun one. This track, I believe, is the height of their trolling, because again, as I said at the beginning of the stream, in 1996 there was not as much information readily available out there on the internet as there is today. So many people didn't know much. Oh, here comes the sneeze. Excuse me, that's been brewing for a while. This track is just like the height of them trolling, maybe not necessarily the fans, because maybe if you are listening to the album and you get the jokes and you get the pranks, but going back to again that old trope of parents thinking that metal and hard rock and music is going to turn their kids into a bunch of devil worshippers or something. Well, thank you. Hopefully I muted my microphone in time. Nobody needed to hear that. But this old thing of how they say, rock and roll is going to turn a bunch of kids into devil worshippers and stuff. This, and I gotta use my words very carefully on this one, because this paragraph might have a couple buzzwords that YouTube doesn't like. I'm still kind of working on Rumble. I can't get any traction over there because even I have a hard time using it. But you need a minimum of 5 followers to be able to live stream over on Rumble. I have 3, but I also haven't really been using that platform that much. So yes, this is the 46-2 album. I think you said that earlier and I missed it. Got lost in there somewhere. Yeah, this is the album with 46-2. So, and actually, yeah, I kind of skipped over that whole part too. Like, part of what was really important about this album, what I think Roman's already drunk. I need to have some whiskey to catch up with you or something. Which, conveniently enough, I do have right here. So, couple other reasons why this album was so important. First of all, specifically and personally to me, was because I was but a wee lad in the 90s. Obviously, I was alive. I could say that I was around and I was alive, but I wasn't exactly out, buying my own music when Opiate came out in 1991 and when Undertow came out in 1992. But when my older sister decided that she wanted to do away with any sort of hard rock or metal or any sort of music like that she listened to, and she got much more into kind of techno, electronica, that sort of stuff. She just sort of dumped a bunch of CDs on me and was like, here, if you want these, cool. Among those were Pantera, Korn, and this album we're talking about right now, Tool's Ænima, which I had heard a couple of the lead singles on Rock 105.3 back when they were still an independent owned rock radio station, and they weren't owned by Clear Channel, where now they just play whatever Clear Channel tells them to play. But they would play songs like Sober from their previous album Undertow. They would play the title track off of this album, Ænima. They would play, I think, Stinkfist 46 and 2. So I kind of heard some of the songs, but then all of a sudden now I had the CD, I had the album, and I listened to it, and I don't even know if I necessarily knew what to think of it at the time, but it definitely was not. It was not one of those albums where I just like listened to it once and then kind of went, whatever. I'll get back around to it. Like, I listened to it and I would listen to it again, and I listened to it again, and so then because the internet was around, but it was very much in its infancy. I started going online, wanting to figure out everything I could about this band, which, again, like I said, photos were scarce. They don't appear in their music videos. Information was little to nothing. And it's just the mystery behind the band was so fascinating to me, aside from the music and everything. It's like not knowing anything about them. 147 in the 90s. 120 in the 90s. Well, you guys are just battling it out. Terrestrial radio is this is where I am happy for streaming and the internet now, is that I don't have to listen to local radio with commercials and cheeseball DJs. 147. Yes. Oh, where is it? I'm slipping up here. Where is it?
Today is my 111th birthday. I don't know half of you half as well as I should like, and I like less than half of you half as well as you deserve.
There's actual footage of Roman on his birthday. Jacob says, I was out buying heavy metal music at 6 years old. Came out rocking. Yeah, so this track, it's another sort of segue. I mean, it's got spoken word lyrics, it's got music, but I gotta make sure YouTube doesn't cancel me for this one. The fourth and most controversial segue is the Eier van Satan. It is introduced by a distorted bass line giving way to a heavy industrial guitar, starting at the 23-second mark and lasting only 10 seconds, playing a single chord in drop C tuning over a reversed drum beat in 9/8 meter. I'm a musician, and that hurt my brain. The lyrics are performed in German, so again, they're jokesters, but this is we're heading down a path here. The spoken word lyrics are in German by an individual named Marco Fox, bass player for Zaum and Sex Tapes. He's backed by a sound that resembles a hydraulic press and a crowd cheering and applause that increase in volume as the lyrics are read with increasing ferocity. with the greatest emphasis on the line, "Und keiner Eier." We'll get to what that means in a minute because this is hilarious. So you can kind of see the picture we're painting here, where it's like an industrial sounding music, a guy speaking in German, a large crowd cheering, and it's getting louder and louder. I'm not going to say the word, but I'm just going to let you guys figure it out. They're painting a picture here, but they're doing it again as a joke because parents probably heard this and probably freaking burned the CDs and like threw them out and like, did I already mention Tom Waits? Tom Waits is mentioned in here somewhere. I know there's a reference to Tom Waits in here, but I might be getting ahead of me. I do like Tom Waits though. This is so the "Und keiner Eier" is the repeated catchphrase. These combined effects make the song sound like a militant German rant, or I'm going to leave that word out, rally. While the tone is aggressive, the speaker is merely reciting a recipe for a Mexican wedding cookie. It's a cookie recipe. The song was originally translated by Gudrun Fox, according to Blair Mackenzie Blake, the maintainer of Tool's official website. The Eier von Satan originally were cookies that Marco Fox's grandmother used to bake for him as a child without using eggs as an ingredient. The substitution for eggs is a magical incantation from the worm-eaten pages of some smoldering grimoire. This magical incantation, Zimzalabim Bamba Sala Dozaladim, it's taken from the German children's song Auf einem Baum ein Kuck. Oh, I feel like I need to ask for apologies. That sounds dirty. So now we can back up. It's a cookie recipe. It's a Mexican wedding cookie recipe being read in German. But the catchphrase up there that's repeated over and over again throughout the track, "Und keiner Eier," simply means "and no eggs." But there's multiple times throughout the tracks where the guy says it, and it's very aggressive. He's like, "Und keiner Eier," and all it means is "and no eggs." But the crowd cheers and goes nuts, and it's just like, it's all a big joke. It's hilarious. But some people don't like the jokes. According to the lyrics, the special ingredient besides this incantation is a knife tip of Turkish hashish. The title is a play on deviled eggs, translating to "the eggs of Satan" in English, or "the balls of Satan," due to a German double entendre of the word Eier. So far, the only time it has been performed live in its entirety was on December 19th, 1996 at the Universal Amphitheater in Los Angeles. The track has been compared to the work of industrial and experimental artists such as some name I cannot even begin to pronounce, Rammstein, and Tom Waits. That is a weird mixture of names. And I've got my whiskey now, so I'm catching up to you, Roman. Cookie Monster in German. Could read the Hallmark book in German and start a world war. So aggressive. It is a very aggressive language. It's very aggressive sounding. So moving on here, we've got probably one of my favorite tracks on here, the song "Push It," but also the box set I was talking about earlier, Salival, however it's pronounced. There's an alternate live version of this song "Push It" on there that is much better. It's just really rad. They really stretched it out. Oh yeah, you're already drunk too? I've only got so much whiskey, which I'm trying to preserve as long as I can because this came from Idaho, because it's made out of potatoes. And I only have 2 lagers, which I'm almost done with this one. So I gotta go to the store. Push It was titled as a single word to emphasize the ambiguity of the pronunciation in regard of the S word. Push it on me, push shit on me. and an alternate version of Push It was performed live, including someone named Alok Dutta playing a tabla, which is like an Indian hand drum, and appears on the Survival box set. As I already mentioned, the song Third Eye contains samples of comedian Bill Hicks. The title may be a reference to Hicks's assertion that I have no idea what that word is or how to pronounce it. We'll just say mushrooms. Something PSILOCYBE. Mushrooms could be used to, quote, squeegee one's third eye clean. The goal of the album as a whole was to open people up in some way and help open their third eye and help them on their path. Ænima, the title track, makes lyrical references to Bill Hicks' set Arizona Bay, in which the San Andreas Fault collapses, purging the continent of Southern California. Well, in the artwork we saw earlier, it pretty much purged almost all of California, but I guess here they're specifically targeting Southern California because the band originated in Los Angeles. And if I'm not mistaken, the other three members still live there, but Maynard hightailed it out to Arizona to start a winery, which he's doing very well for himself. The purging of Southern California and the Baja Peninsula, which would give Arizona its own ocean front. So I guess that kind of makes sense there. It was when he moved to Arizona. So it's like he moved to Arizona, but maybe he misses the ocean. I don't know. It's further illustrated in the lenticular map under the CD tray. The alternate spelling for the song emphasizes the Ænima portion of the combined title also used for the album. In this way, it differentiates the meaning of the song, with California's collapse seen as a flushing out for the country, from the meaning of the album, the Ænima emphasis indicating a spiritual Jungian focus for the album in its entirety, while retaining the song's placement as the title track, though the differing spelling and pronunciation marks a different approach from the other Tool albums that are named directly after songs Opiate, Undertow, Lateralis, and Fear Inoculum, or sections of songs 10,000 Days. So, and then it gets into the artwork here a little bit. Let's see. The packaging for this album was nominated for a Grammy for Best Recording Package. North American pressings of the album were packaged in a custom lenticular jewel case called a multi-image CD case in the liner notes for the cover and interior disc tray. The cover art and other images in the liner notes can be set behind the lenticular lens to create an effect and sequential animation. European pressings of the CD featured a standard case, and the insert contained a catalog of 16 fictional, humorously titled other albums by Tool. So this is actually another fun fact about these guys, is that they have, even before the days of BitTorrents, even before the days of Napster, before all that stuff, they were still famous for kind of putting out fake albums ahead of album releases to throw off anyone that would try in some way, shape, or form to try to pirate an album and say, you know, oh, here, I got the set tape, I got the CD, and I got the new Tool album ahead of time. They would intentionally put out fake albums and fake album artwork, which I do think I have images here on this other website I found. So again, first of all, the pranksters. Second of all, trying to deter people that are trying to pirate their music. First of all, trying to pirate it for free anyways. And secondly, trying to get a hold of it before the release date because people are so freaking impatient. Special images used for the lenticular effect are Cam de Leon painting Smokebox, which we're looking at right now on my screen here, so you don't have to see my giant face head on the screen. A touched up version of the painting Ocular Orifice with the pupil in the eye animated to rotate completely around. So that other image I pulled up earlier that had the two pupils in the eye, that's one where it would animate and move. Photo of a contortionist with legs wrapped behind her head, appearing to be performing. You can fill in the rest of that sentence in your own brain. Shown sitting on a couch to the right are Danny Carey, Justin Chancellor, Adam Jones, and Maynard James Keenan. But if you animate the image with the lenticular lens, it gets up to throw a single rose on the ground in front of the contortionist doing whatever they're doing to themselves. And the contortionist is also the same image that's on the CD. Do you think I have that one here somewhere? Sure do. So as soon as you open up, you buy the album, pull the shrink wrap off. Okay, look, you open up the case, bam. Kind of takes you a minute to figure out what's going on, but then you put it together. Yeah. See, and that's one of the things I really, really appreciate about this band is that Opiate and Undertow were pretty normal. Undertow had a couple of hidden things where Undertow came in a case where when you pulled the CD out of the case, it was just a plain black tray. But if you pried up the black tray, there was another weird, disturbing image underneath that I'm not going to talk about. I'll leave that to you guys to Google for yourselves. But they've, ever since Undertow, at least, they've tried to put some sort of hidden thing in the artwork, and then, you know, make something to where it's like makes people want to own it, makes people want to have the physical copy. They've released different versions in different countries. Europe gets different versions than us. I talked earlier about, if you remember back in the days of buying music at places like Walmart and Kmart, sometimes the stuff would be censored. The album covers would be completely different because they deemed them inappropriate or offensive, everything. So there's just all sorts of interesting lore behind this band and all the different versions that exist out there in the world because of one reason or another. But yes, especially since this album, this one, you had the lenticular lens where the artwork would animate. The next album, Lateralis, it had a series of photos or of artwork that was made by Alex Gray that would show sort of different layers of muscle tissue and things underneath the body, and just very what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. But that one was very interesting. Following album, 10,000 Days, was really cool because it had this actually that one I can run and get really quick.
Get out of my way.
What's that? This, my friend, is a pint. It comes in pints? I can get you one. You've had a whole half already.
And we're back. So the 10,000 Days, a little dusty. You can kind of see on the camera, it has these lenses sort of attached to it. And so inside the album, there's all these double images that you can essentially try to look through these two lenses, and it creates quite the 3D image. It's one of those like almost like magic eye type of things. So you look through those lenses. So that one thing. Their most recent one, Fear Inoculum, had this whole thing where it opens up. The battery's dead right now, but it had a screen inside there that had kind of a little video that played with some sort of instrumental segue that's not on the main part of the album. So these guys really go above and beyond to put the effort into their artwork, their packaging, something to where even though they finally, after all these years of holding out, they finally put all of their music up on streaming services back in 2019 at the release of Fear Inoculum. They still put something out there that makes people want to have the physical copy. You can also, I'm not going to pull that off the shelf because there's way too much to go through, but I also have an unboxing video I did where I bought the vinyl box set of their most recent album, Fear Inoculum, and went through everything. Each record, they really stretched it out, I think, across 4 or 5 LPs, because each record only has music on one side, and on the flip side, there's artwork engraved or etched on the backside of each individual record. So rather than each record having music on both sides, they just said, okay, one side, other one has artwork. It was a really cool box set. I did a whole unboxing video about it, but if I pull that off the shelf, it's gonna take up my whole desk. just made some CD art for someone. It did not have yeah, well, that's probably a good thing, Jacob. I don't recommend duplicating that one. That was a one and done by Tool, and they owned it. That's their thing. So basically what I mean by the album battery is dead is that physical artwork that I have there, it does have CDs inside of it. It was just that when you opened up the box, there's a little LED screen inside there that played a short video. So that portion of it is dead, but it really does have physical CDs in it. So yeah. No, Roman, you just have a problem. I think we need to have an intervention. You don't need more space. You need help. So let's see. We kind of went through. Oh, wasn't there something? There was some other fun fact in here somewhere. Where did it go? Ten facts superfans probably already know. We already knew that. We already went over that. I already went over much of that. Useful pranksters. Yeah, we went over that. Cookies, talked about that one. Charted twice. European pressings. Track number 1. Okay, this is the one I was looking for because I remember seeing this. This is a separate article from what I was just reading from Loudwire. The facts in this article we already went over in great depth, but this one I thought was especially funny because going back to how no, you don't understand. Roman blames me for his newfound record collection addiction, but I can't tell you the last time I bought a record. And every time I see him, he's like, yeah, we bought like 10 new records and I don't know where to put them. And yes, the double gatefolds do take up a lot of space, but I appreciate them because I like having the artwork. So this one I thought was kind of funny. We're going back to the thing of how the ideas of censorship sort of ebbs and flows. And it's like each side, because I mean, to some degree it is a little bit political, but like each side wants to censor someone, something, sometime. And we swing way far to one side and these people want to censor the people. Then we kind of go back to some semblance of middle ground normal. Then it swings way over to the other side. And then these people are trying to censor these people. But I don't need my display name on when I'm solo. I don't know why that's been up this whole time. I just noticed. When MTV put out the music video for their first single, Stink Fist, on heavy rotation, they changed the name to track number 1. Right there. When it aired, because they felt the actual title was too offensive for the audience. Fans complained about the censorship, so MTV's 120 Minutes host Matt Pinfield shook his fist while encouraging viewers to buy the album. Now, okay, granted, this is 1996. This is a time where MTV was actually still showing music videos. For any of you kids out there watching this, yes, MTV used to stand for music television. It has not been that way for probably over 20 years, but here we are. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, some of the older folks in the chat. I'm looking at you, Roman. But when MTV came out, wasn't it kind of supposed to be, edgy, sort of punk rock, sort of like pushing all of this, evil rock and roll that's going to make kids want to go out and have sex and do drugs and worship Satan and everything? How ironic is it that even in the 90s, just probably a little over 10 years after the channel launched, they think a track called Stink Fist is offensive. So when they air the video, it's just called track number 1 because it's the first track on the album. Something to ponder. Yeah, so earlier in the stream, before you popped in, I was talking about, again, censorship and the movement of when they started putting parental advisory stickers on albums and stuff, and how that movement apparently was headed up by Tipper Gore. Funny enough, a Democrat. But those are the people, the Democrats now saying that, oh, well, the people on the other side of the political aisle are all trying to censor everybody and take away all your rights. It's like everyone's trying to censor somebody and take away somebody's rights. It's just which rights and which censorship are you actually fighting for? Both sides are trying to do it to the other side. It's so yeah, it's like the whole Oliver Anthony thing, where it's like with Oliver Anthony, they're trying to attach him to be like, oh, well, his song is all super right-wing conservative, whatever. No, it's this, it's that. And he's just like, I hate both political parties. Kind of where I'm at. Seen some insane collections, wall-to-wall library, whole rooms with stacks through the middle. Roman, get your shit together, man. You need like the Beauty and the Beast library with the rolling ladder, but for records. What are you even doing with your life right now? You need a bigger house. Limited numbers of videos in the early days. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I knew that. The video Killed the Radio Star was the first video, which how in the world did they write that? Like, did they write the song knowing that MTV was getting ready to launch? Like, I'm more curious about that. Oh, 100%. When I talked about it at the very beginning of the stream, I was talking about how I feel like you don't really see them much anymore, and mostly again because I'm buying stuff on. If I buy music, I buy it on vinyl. Otherwise, I'm just streaming it on Spotify. But I just feel like you don't really see the advisory much anymore. But in the 90s, it was like 90s and early 2000s. It was such a pain in the ass because sometimes it would just be a sticker on the shrink wrap on the outside. Sometimes you would open the shrink wrap and it would be a sticker actually on the jewel case. And then sometimes what would really piss me off is if it was actually literally printed on the artwork, because now it's like, say a band like Tool or, whoever, if somebody has put time and thought and effort into this artwork and into this packaging, and you've permanently printed this stupid freaking warning on the corner of this thing that you can never get rid of. Like, yeah. It's like, how about you just be a better parent and pay attention to what your kids are doing or watching or listening to? And, like if they want to listen to something or they get like, maybe like you give it a listen yourself and decide if it's appropriate or not, or just let your kids be rebellious and listen to stuff that you don't want them listening to. It builds character. Hate watch reviews are as well. Everyone's a censor. Yeah, but I think the hate watch reviews, you're not saying that these people should be censored or that they shouldn't do what they're doing. Well, I guess in some ways, maybe you're saying they shouldn't do what they're doing, but you're just asking for better. You're not trying to silence them per se. Yeah. Yeah. I've noticed that on Spotify, it'll say explicit next to the song. Yeah. Well, let's see. Do I have any other fun facts? Oh, here's just kind of some quick rapid fire stuff that's not entirely off topic, but it's not on the topic of the album. Recently, Tool was joined on stage by rising bluegrass star Billy Strings in Salt Lake City. I have not looked up. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I have not looked up the videos for this yet. Like I said earlier, I have been to many a Tool show, and love it or hate it, they are very strict with their audience about the no cell phone policy. Granted, if you can be sneaky about it, if you can be discreet about it, you can snap some photos here and there. You can take some video. I remember not this last time around in January, but the beginning of 2020, before the dark times, Saw them in January of 2020. It was the last big concert I went to before the world shut down. I was with a very good, very old friend of mine he was a drummer in a band that I used to be in, and his big main influence that he looked up to is Tool drummer Danny Carey. So of course we bonded over being fans of Tool. We've gone to a bunch of their shows before. He took a bunch of videos during the show, but what he did is he would just set his phone up to record video, and he would like put it like in the crook of his elbow and just kind of stand real still like this. As long as you're not being obvious about it, you're going to be okay. But I'm going to be completely honest, and you can, throw me your feedback and what you guys think of this, if you think it's too extreme or whatever. I have seen people get removed from Tool concerts for repeatedly violating the no cell phone policy. They're not telling you can't have your phone on you. What they're saying is the band does not want you to take video or photos or whatever. And God bless them, man. The security is very graceful. They will come over and give you multiple warnings. I remember one year seeing this band live. People were, they do the thing where they like hold their phone way up here, and it's like you can hold it right here. It's still probably get pretty good video and pictures. Like the people that have to like hold it way up, where so now all of a sudden now I'm watching the show through your phone screen. Now I'm pissed off, and that's why they do this, so that you don't piss off the other fans that have paid a bunch of money to be at this show. But they'll come over and they'll kind of tap people on the shoulder and be like, hey, like, you got to put your phone away, okay. And then they'll do it again. They'll come back. I think somebody once got upwards of maybe 4 to 5 warnings before finally security pulled them and they said, you got to go. So you can maybe say that that's kind of extreme. They paid their money to be there just like everyone else, but it's like it's posted everywhere. There's signs everywhere. There's everything. It says like no photos, no video, no, like it's all over the place. So once they give you 2, 3, 4, 5 warnings, after that, they're like, you're out. So I kind of support that. You've been warned. Be more discreet. I take some videos at concerts. Fine. Be more discreet. Don't bug the person behind you. But anyways, there's video out there somewhere on the internet of this. I have not looked it up yet, but I thought this was kind of cool. Of all the people, rising bluegrass star Billy Strings, if you're not familiar, is a very talented individual. I've only heard a handful of his songs. I need to look up more of his albums and listen to them in his entirety, but he's very talented, and he joined Tool on stage. And Maynard even made a post on his social media about something, I haven't like seen, fire fingers like that in a long time or whatever. And then he kind of added in there, except for the rest of the guys in the Tool band, you guys are good too. Like, again, cheeky monkeys, jokesters. Let's see, what's the 18th? So funny enough, right there. No, Idaho Falls there, Nampa. They were just at the Ford Idaho Center, where my folks live now. Obviously, my parents are not going to go see a Tool concert, but it's nice to know that if I move out closer to my parents, that they get good concerts. Despite the band's often strict no filming policy, fan-filmed footage of that pairing has leaked out online and is available for viewing below. So if I remember to do this when I'm done with the live stream, I can link this article in here, and you guys can check out these videos. Obviously, I'm not going to play them right now because I will get the copyright strike. And I'm not necessarily saying I'm close to getting monetized, but the subs are growing, watch hours are growing, so anything could happen. Who knows? I think when I checked today, I'm somewhere around 327 subs. Watch hours are up there. So this humble little channel is just chugging along like the little engine that could. So sometimes dreams really do come true. Who knows? No one is buying crappy cell phone videos. No, they're not buying them, but still, the band has very much stood by the fact that when you pay your money to be at a show, I think it's kind of twofold. I think it's 2 things. One is the other fans have paid their money to be there. And much like how I want to watch the show and I want to experience the show the way it's intended, because their shows are very visually amazing with video screens everywhere, laser lights, everything. It's phenomenal. I don't want to sit there and watch the show through my phone on a video that I'm probably never actually going to watch again. And then secondly, while I'm trying to enjoy the show, I don't want the person in front of me to put their phone up in front of my face because they think they have to extend their arms as high as they possibly can. So now I'm watching the show through someone else's phone because they're being an asshole. And they believe that each performance is personal to that audience, that if you paid your money to be there, you got your way into the show, and if you weren't there, tough luck. They have never officially released it. They've never officially released any DVDs or anything of any official live footage because they think, okay, each show is personal to that crowd. You were there, that was your show, that was for you. The next night might be a little bit different. They might, it's a personal thing for each crowd, and they don't think it will translate on film, whether on a cell phone or whether professionally shot footage. They just really believe if you want to see them, you have to just go to the show, which I agree. It really is an experience to be had. What else do we have here? Oh, yes. And this one, again, I love, and what in the, no, what do you, no. Ad blocker, son of a, you stupid. All right. That thing's not letting me get past my ad blocker. But, face. It's always interesting what headlines say about things when somebody is, oh, what's up, Cajun? How you doing, brother? Somebody will be interviewed about something, and it will be put in print form and then be taken wildly out of context. So, Tool bassist Justin Chancellor was interviewed recently, and he was basically just saying that they have a bunch of ideas cooking for a potential new album. He was not saying they're going to go into the studio to start recording this next spring. He just said, we have some ideas. Said, we got some tours lined up. As long as we're touring, that's what we're focused on. We're focused on the tour. Come springtime, he's like, we'll get into the studio. And my interpretation of that is meaning when he gets into the when they get into the studio, they will get together and hash out those ideas and kind of finalize them. That doesn't mean they're going to record. That article I just tried to pull up, but it doesn't like my ad blocker on my computer, so couldn't get past it. It was basically saying Tool to hit the studio in spring of 2024. And I get it. You got to sensationalize the stuff sometimes to get people to click on it. But basically all Justin said is they have a bunch of ideas cooking. They're going to start working on them. The typical album cycle for Tool is between 5 to 6 years. There was 5 years between Ænima to Lateralis. There was 5 years between Lateralis to 10,000 Days. And then there was a whopping 13 years between 10,000 Days and Fear Inoculum. But that was not normal. There were a lot of outside forces contributing to that. But I will be curious to see. Fear Inoculum came out in 2019. We're already here now, 5 years later. Maybe they could crank out an album within the next year or so. We shall see. But I always crack up at the fans that for that 13-year thing, they were still touring, they're still going out playing shows, but they hadn't put out any new music. And all the comments and all the people going, I'm so done with this band, I hate these guys, they won't put out new music. And I'm like, well, I think if Tool never released another new song ever, that would not make me like their music any less. Obviously, I like what they've done up to this point. I enjoy going to their live performances, but this idea that it's like they owe you something, that they owe you a new album and that you're entitled to a new album, it's like they could just be like, nah, no more new music. They've been a band for over 30 years and they have, let's see, Opiate, Undertow, Ænima, Lateralis, 10,000 Days, Fear Inoculum. They have 5 albums and 1 EP. Sometimes I think that's actually kind of beneficial because let's think about it. If you were to go, say, see a band like ZZ Top, they have continued to write and record new music. I am not familiar with any of their music, probably beyond the mid to late 80s, and I'm sure anyone here still watching also is not. If you were to go to a ZZ Top concert and they were like, we're going to play a bunch of songs off of our brand new album, you'd be a little bummed out, right? You want to hear Sharp Dressed Man. You want to hear Lagrange. You want to hear Legs. You want to hear, all the classics, all the songs There comes a time where if your band is around for a certain period of time, you have put out too much music. When people go to your shows, they're eventually going to walk away disappointed because they're going to be like, oh, they didn't play my favorite song. They didn't, whatever. All right, Jacob, thanks for tuning in, brother. I will see you next time, either in one of your chats or mine, but always good to see you. Thanks for popping in. But the fact that they released their album so far apart, One, I mean, they're putting a lot of work into it. They say that they're never going to put an album out just to put it out. They're not going to put something out just to satisfy a contract. They're not going to put it out just because of pressures from fans, labels, whatever. They're going to do things on their timeline, and they are now able to do that because they've shown that all these decades later there is a demand for it, and they will put an album out, people will buy it, they will tour, their shows will sell out in less than 15 minutes. Having fewer albums makes it easier to tour because you can go see them and expect that you are probably going to hear a handful of your favorite songs. Yes, when they are still putting out new music, they are going to play a majority of the newer songs, but because there are fewer albums to pull from, you're more than likely going to hear some of the old favorites, hear some of the new songs, and you're going to have a grand old time. Cajun says, I went to a Leonard Skinner concert a few years back. They played some of the new stuff, but they stuck to the oldies more. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's what's up. I have seen Alice in Chains. I mean, the new incarnation of Alice in Chains with Willem Duvall as the lead vocalist. And I had my reservations about it because I do still kind of adhere to that camp of like, it's not the same without Jerry Cantrell and Lane Staley together. But the shows were fun. They were good. They've released, I think, 3 albums now with William Duvall. They only play like 2 of their newer songs. They stick to the original 3 albums and the Jar of Flies EP because they know where their audience is. They're playing Man in the Box. They're playing Wood. They're playing Bones. They play Nutshell, and then all of a sudden they'd be like, oh, this is a song off of our new album. And you can just like see like when you turn the light on, the cockroaches scatter, like everyone runs to go to the bathroom and get another beer because nobody wants to hear their new music. They just want to hear the old classic Alice in Chains songs. So yeah, I think Tool's really doing it right. They're never in a big hurry to do anything. They're never in a big rush to release anything. They just they do their thing. New stuff is still very good. Now for live, you want the classics. Yeah, you're paying money to go to a show. You want to hear the songs you recognize. You want to hear the songs that you grew up with or, whatever. Well, as I am out of beer and nearing the end of my sip of whiskey. I mean, I'm not out of whiskey, but one sip is good because it's Monday. I got to work tomorrow. I had a busy weekend. I was not ready to go back to work today. And really, even today, I was like, man, I'm not feeling a live stream right now. I was feeling really unprepared and tired. But we've made it almost an hour and a half, which is normally longer than I usually go. But, yeah. Sometimes this is what the Monday live streams turn into.
You know he's going to the week's end, right? You don't have to be hard asses, do you?
Yeah, it's St. Paddy's Day. Everyone's Irish tonight. Why don't you just pull up a stool and have a drink with us?
Just pull up a stool and have a drink with us. Oh, yeah, okay. Mr. Old Retired Guy, get out of here.
No. No, man. Shit, no, man. I believe you get your ass kicked saying something like that, man.
Yeah. At least I'm not getting woken up at 1:40 in the morning because I have a dog trying to barf on my carpet. Not at all. My body is literally sore from playing 2 gigs over the weekend. I need to go back to the gym. Oh, gosh. Trying to see if I have any other funny clips I want to throw in here before I just abruptly end this thing. Yeah. Anyways. Roman wakes up at 2 a.m. because he has to pee. You're also probably not wrong about that one. That's probably much more accurate. So the dog really only woke him up 20 minutes early. Well, look at you. Man, you're gonna be incapacitated tomorrow, just laid up, sore, unable to move. I don't know. The Misses of the Empire might have something to say at that point. I'm not going to try to do the voice, but Roman always does the Marge Simpson voice. All right, well, this has been fun. I think that's about all the fun facts I have for this album for now. On Twitter, somebody sent me something interesting that was about again, I don't think the band intended it, because I think there's certain things of we could talk about the argument of whether Pink Floyd ever actually intended the Dark Side of the Moon to match up with the Wizard of Oz or not. They still very much deny that it was ever on purpose. They claim the technology did not exist back then to be able to do that. However, it is still kind of a fun thing to do, even if it wasn't on purpose. Somebody on Twitter today pointed out to me on my post about this live stream about the combining of 3 different tracks on the Tool album 10,000 Days to sort of make like one super track. I've kind of heard about it before. I've tried it. I don't really think it works all that much, but it's kind of an interesting thing. But then there's another one where you can take their album Lateralis, which the title track is very much centered around a mathematical equation known as the Fibonacci sequence, creates spirals in nature and whatnot. You can reorganize the track listing also in somewhat of a Fibonacci sequence, and basically reorganize the album that fans have dubbed Tool's Holy Gift. Kind of an interesting thing. So there's lots of other things about this band to talk about. This one I thought was especially important and special because it took them from Opiate and Undertow. They were just sort of a progressive metal band that they played heavy riffs and had a singer that screamed, and they kind of played in odd time signatures. But this album, where Justin Chancellor, new bass player, came into the fold, they really kind of solidified their new sound. Like, this was actually almost kind of like their Dark Side of the Moon, whereas Pink Floyd had released many albums before Dark Side of the Moon, but they started to see some real mainstream success. Dark Side of the Moon was a pivotal moment for their career, and then it took them kind of in a different direction. So for Tool, this album was very much where they started to really find their footing, really find their signature sound, which has carried on and continued to evolve album after album. So aside from it being personally special to me, being the first album of theirs that I got a hold of, and then I had to backtrack to learn about Undertow and Opiate, it was a major milestone in their career that catapulted them into the very strange, mysterious prankster band that we know today, where their fans are too serious to take a joke, but they just keep poking the bear. And I love that about them. Got to take a pre-bedtime nap. He didn't already take a nap today? Are you kidding me? I thought he was going to say he's got to take a pre-bedtime pee so he doesn't, get up in the middle of the night or pee the bed, but who knows? Anyways, thanks everybody who was in the chat today. We've got Steph, Lady Marine, Stephen Ransom, Jacob Ironside, Cajun Corey, Roman of the Empire. I think that was everybody. I don't think I missed anyone. As always, this has been fun. Next week, I'll make sure to stock up on the booze a little bit more and hopefully come up with a topic equally as amusing and or entertaining. Or maybe I'll just sit here and drink and just talk to whoever's in the chat. We'll see what happens. But until I figure that out, thank you guys so much for being here. See you next week.
Be excellent to each other.